St Andrews in the sun is as beautiful and romantic a place as you could hope to find. The sea glistens, even the grey of the granite glistens, the sands stretch invitingly, and in the warmth of the summer, you wander around the cobbled streets and the ancient ruins of the castle and the cathedral and marvel at living in such an ancient and uplifting place. But in winter, when the temperature drops, the days are short, the sky is thunderous, the sea grey and angry, it can be as miserable as sin. William was not the first undergraduate to go through a period of wanting to leave the place. David Corner began to realize at the end of the first term that he was worried. I would get halfway through a conversation about something boring and I would say, "How are you?" And he would say, "I'm okay," and you could tell he was not as okay as he had been 2 months before, and I would say, "Is there anything I can do?" And he would say, "David, that's awfully kind but no, I'm okay." And it was a stiff upper lip in a certain sense that was very difficult to break down. So what I did was, I said, "You've got my phone number. If ever you feel you want to ring it, you ring it," and I'd say that to any student, William, in this situation. I think we had one talk that pierced the surface but no more. One of his themes time and time again was, how will this affect other students? It was extraordinarily generous of him because he was under pressure, but that was the watchword for everything. The accepted wisdom is that William was homesick and felt cut off being so far away from his family. He himself has said he was not so much homesick as feeling daunted. David Corner thinks the real problem was one that afflicts a lot of students: self-doubt. I think he was enjoying some subjects more than others. Social anthropology is tough, very theoretical, and William is quite a practical person. It was no coincidence he eventually got to geography, which is almost tangible. St Andrews has lots of very bright students. I remember my own experience of going to Oxford from a Birmingham school. You talk to your peers and they all seem to know more than you do, and it was that sort of reaction partly. Also perhaps loneliness. He was the sort of student who was never going to get into academic difficulty, a student who was conscientious. What I noticed as an outsider was this tremendous thing that I suspect most members of the family have, which is a notion of obedience, a notion that you do what you're told. That was very obvious when they ever talked about the Queen, but it was also obvious about life in general. He's not the brightest student we've ever had, but he was always a conscientious student and got it done. And when he couldn't get any peace, he used to go and sit in the top of the local police station and do his essays. There was a nest where 5 police met the protection squad and he used to go in there and do his work. I think it was because he was lonely that he became so close to the group that became housemates in his last 3 years and who were at his wedding. He needed them and they were a great lot, incredibly protective. I remember seeing them once in Anstruther, a fishing village along the coast. He'd gone to get some fish and chips and I happened to be sitting outside in a car waiting for my wife, and I saw a local weaving his way up the road, pointing a finger and cursing and muttering. It was very interesting to see their group movement. They almost formed a shell around William and I thought how mature for kids of that age. He'd started doing things that were mostly male, water polo and rugby, sea swimming and scuba diving at Ely. I think he was on his way back from diving at Ely when I saw him having fish and chips. They ate it on the pavement out of paper. It was several months before he felt comfortable enough to engage with university life, and there were many weekends when he disappeared to see friends at Edinburgh University, or visit Balmoral or Gloucestershire to hang out with his childhood friends. He thought long and hard about leaving St Andrews and had many conversations with his father who tried to dissuade him, also with his grandfather, who had no time for quitters. Another valuable voice was that of his old housemaster at Eton, Andrew Gailey, always understanding, calm and wise. You can be sure that in the end it was William's decision and his alone. He decided to stay and tough it out, which was undoubtedly a welcome decision for the university, the fortunes of which could have been seriously compromised had he left. It was certainly the right decision for William. There would have been unfortunate echoes of Prince Edward's decision at a similar age to quit the Royal Marines a third of the way through a grueling year-long commando course. Not many in the media saw it as the courageous decision it was. Most of the press hung Edward out to dry. One of the voices William listened to during that time was Kate Middleton's. She was also away from her comfort zone for the first time during that first year and was as daunted by some elements of this new life as he was. Kate had been one of the least pushy of the girls he met in that first year. She had a quiet, confident presence and was friendly and laughed easily. She was the sort of person with whom it felt safe to open up a little, someone who had depth and empathy. They were both a long way from home and their backgrounds were very different, but by coincidence, they had both been Raleigh venturers to the same place in Chile the year before. Kate's expedition had followed immediately after William's, so they knew many of the same people and places and could compare notes, share stories and laugh about the discomforts together. They immediately had a bond. They were also, they discovered, both keen tennis players, swimmers and skiers and all-round sports enthusiasts. And they were both studying history of art, so they went to lectures together and for coffees afterwards, and for drinks in the pubs and wine bars. They swam and surfed together and played tennis on the university courts. As time passed, it developed into a close and mutually supportive friendship. There had been no thunderbolt when they met. Asked for her first impression of William during their engagement interview, Kate said, "I actually think I went bright red when I met you and sort of scuttled off, feeling very shy about meeting you." As commonly happens, she started going out with a fourth-year student, Rupert Finch. And William's eye was also roving elsewhere. According to their fellow students, most girls' reaction to him at that time was, "What a nice guy," and looking back he was cute. But girls didn't go, "Wow, he's so good-looking." Except perhaps for the Americans who fell at his feet. Kate was said to have had a photograph of William on her wall at school, but she knocked that myth on the head when asked about it in their engagement interview. "There wasn't just one, there were about 20, said William. "He wishes," said Kate. "No, I had the Levi's guy on my wall, not a picture of William, sorry." To which William replied, "It was me in Levi's, honestly." The truth is, it was more than a year before they were anything other than very good friends, and making each other laugh was an important part of it. Kate left little impression on the academic staff at St. Andrews, who confessed that when lecturing to a sea of faces, it's rare for one to stand out. "She was another girl in a pashmina," one said. "I wouldn't have remembered her at all if I hadn't seen something in the newspaper in the second semester. When I read about her charismatic personality, well, maybe it's developed, but it wasn't that obvious then. Sometimes students passing through are headed for great things, but I didn't notice her in 4 years." Those organizing the Raleigh expedition have no strong memory of her either. They too, like university professors, are processing hundreds of young people every year, and one more girl battling the elements, with unwashed hair and no makeup, in grubby jeans, is easy to miss. When Malcolm Sutherland looks back at photographs of Kate in Chile, compared with how she looks now, he can't believe it's the same girl. But part of her allure for William was that she didn't stand out. Today, with the designer frocks, the killer heels, the makeup and the perfectly tended hair, she looks as though she was made for the red carpet. But that wasn't how she looked when William fell in love with her. She looked like any number of attractive young girls, with a good figure and ready smile. She was natural and relaxed, pretty without ever looking as though she was trying too hard. Although her parents were extremely wealthy and she had been to a top school, she wasn't a Sloane Ranger, or a as so many of the girls he knew in Gloucestershire and London were, and like so many of the girls who hung around him at St. Andrews too. Her parents were resoundingly middle class. She spoke without an exaggerated upper-class accent, and she was refreshingly shy, yet intelligent and strong. Not so shy, however, that she wasn't prepared to stride down an improvised catwalk in the Students' Union wearing little more than a bra and pants. But it was for charity, and compared with what some of the other models had on, she was modesty itself. It was an annual event called Just Walk, said to be Scotland's most prestigious fashion show, and for the record did not happen at the 5-star St. Andrews Bay Hotel but at what is arguably the ugliest and tattiest building in the town. The event is entirely run by students to raise money for charity while supporting up-and-coming fashion designers, and William is said to have paid £200 for his ticket and seen Kate in an altogether new light, apparently remarking to his friend, "Wow, Fergus, Kate's hot." The flimsy dress, designed by Charlotte Todd, who was then a fashion student, was intended to be a skirt, but someone decided it would look better worn as a dress. The photograph has become as iconic as the picture of Diana in her diaphanous skirt. As for the dress itself, it lay boxed in the bottom of Charlotte's mother's wardrobe for 8 years and was sold at auction in 2011 for a staggering £78,000. Yet William was never supposed to have been there that night, for what turned out to have been such a seminal moment in the history of the monarchy. Colleen had assured Niall Scott that he would not be going to the event, so Niall had allowed the media in to take photos of the catwalk show. 5 minutes after I'd opened the Union doors to the press, he says, William walked round the corner with his mates and into the hall and sat down at the table right at the end of the runway. The press thought they'd died and gone to heaven. I thought I might be destined for a slow death with no chance of heaven. I called Colleen, who was mildly displeased, but she is about the calmest woman I've ever met. That was when I learned that William, on occasion, would lead even his most trusted minders a merry dance. Kate's female contemporaries describe her as a sweet girl with no airs or graces, who was quiet and not outrageously flirty, but someone who always enjoyed attention from guys. She struck those who shared lectures and tutorials with her as seeming rather vulnerable. She would sit quietly with one male friend, apart from those where she overlapped with William, and didn't hang around with the girls in her year. She didn't seem to like the ones that hung around William. They say she was diligent, in that she went to lectures and seemed to put in more work than most. I felt slightly sorry for her, says one. I think she was more of a guy girl than a girly girl, but she was good fun and she laughed a lot. She was very chatty, very sporty, didn't normally wear makeup and always looked good. Having been educated at Marlborough College, a prestigious co-educational public school in Wiltshire, Kate was very comfortable in mixed company, unlike so many students who arrive at university from single-sex schools. She had done well at Marlborough and excelled at sport, egged on by her parents, Michael and Carol. They were fiercely ambitious for their eldest child. They were always there at the courtside or on the touchline or at the swimming baths to cheer their daughter on in matches and competitions. Michael and Carol had both made their fortune in life through sheer hard work. One profile writer once said rather sniffily that Kate's lineage can't be traced much further back than the suburbanization of Berkshire. They were not members of the landed gentry, they had not been handed their fortune on a plate. They had come from modest origins and worked for every penny they owned. And after years of hard graft in the airline business, he is a member of ground staff. She, until she had children, as an air hostess, they had hit on a brilliant business plan. It grew out of Carol's experience as a stay-at-home mother with her young children. They created a company called Party Pieces in 1987, providing inspiration and supplies for parties for every age group, and shipping them out by mail order. Nearly 25 years later, it is the UK's leading party company, and they have made enough money to have put their 3 children through public school and university and been able to pay a sizable share of Kate's wedding costs. They live in a comfortable 5-bedroom detached house overlooking farmland in the village of Bucklebury in Berkshire, where they support all the local independent shops and are regulars at the local pub, the Bull Inn, in neighbouring Stanford Dingley. Michael, one of life's natural gentlemen, is loved by everyone in the village. Carol is a go-getter, a tough businesswoman who has been the force behind Party Pieces and the family's social ascent. Opinion about them is divided. There's nothing like fame on top of social climbing for dividing opinion, but it is universally agreed in the village that they are a happy family and have lovely, unassuming, friendly children.